In 1936, history was made when NBC aired the very first televised broadcast. From that day forward, the television set quickly became the dominant form of entertainment in households across the world. With the invention of cable television in the late 1940s, televised entertainment had since become a mainstay across the globe.
As far as it goes for the history of television, I'm one of those firm believers that as the society evolves, the hope is that television programming will look to evolve as well.
Throughout the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, families would sit down in front of their television sets and watch whatever happened to be on, often surfing through channels that catered to their interests. This is how things would stay for over 70 plus years. Until 2007, when DVD rental company Netflix began streaming their titles on their website for subscribers to watch.
Anyhow, here's how it works. First you go to First you realize that video stores are nasty and overpriced. Then you go to our site and you click on the link to sign up with Netflix.
Little than most people know, that business decision would mark the beginning of the reign of streaming services. Throughout the 2010s, more services similar to Netflix like Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, and Disney Plus became more and more popular in households across the world, with the number of subscriptions reaching 1.1 billion in 2020. Needless to say, the competition was fierce. Due to the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, most theaters had either closed temporarily or even gone out of business. The Harbor 9 Bowtie Theater in Annapolis, Maryland was one of the many to close down during the pandemic. The theater was known to be quite popular among Annapolis residents.
I enjoyed it over there. I got off work, went over there, went to the movies. It wasn't crowded. I got a good seat, and everything was cool and copacetic.
My experience at this theater, I used to come all the time with my girlfriend, and we bring our own popcorn cheating, which is wonderful. And we had a wonderful time. We used to meet quite often, and a bunch of friends would get together and go see the movies, and it's disappointing that it's closed.
However, some theaters with more financial backing are able to keep themselves afloat better. An example of this is another Bowtie Theater a mile down from Harbor 9. Even though it was affected by the pandemic, it is now getting back on its feet. Consumers had no choice but to look to streaming services, which at that point was taking the lead in their race against cable networks as their primary source of entertainment, especially when studios started to release their films directly to certain streaming services when ticket sales started plummeting. Doing so would not only increase the number of consumers who would watch their films, but also increase the number of subscriptions to these streaming services. Recently though, since the danger of COVID had decreased somewhat, some studios have started to endorse marketing campaigns that explicitly stated that some of their films would only be viewable in theaters. With more consumers using streaming platforms, cable television subscriptions also started dropping, and major theater chains like AMC saw a severe decrease in revenue, losing over $4 billion between 2019 to 2020 due to the pandemic. With streaming becoming more mainstream, cable television and even theaters suffered immensely, and with seemingly no end to the lockdowns and social distancing in sight, it begs the question, could this new revolution in televised entertainment potentially spell the end for regular TV and movie theaters as we know them?
I don't see television actually disappearing anytime soon. I don't see that happening. As far as it goes for television, out of all of the many different forms of media, television, basically, if we're talking about having to recreate itself, has had to do the least amount of recreating. But in order to remain fresh, in order to remain relevant, television continues to recreate itself, you see.
When it comes to television, it certainly seems like the old ways of doing things are well and truly over, although views on this topic tend to differ.
I don't think it'll kill television in the next few years. I think television providers are well aware. Typically, they provide like the internet that's needed to use streaming services. I I don't think in the next few years it'll kill TV services, because also people want to watch some stuff live, like sporting events, for example. That's a huge thing. So I don't think in the next few years, maybe in like the next, 20 some years, that you'll definitely see a shift. But I think at that point, like, TV providers will kind of shift to that streaming platform more or less.
Just knowing that you have options, that's a big deal. I know for me, and I'm sure for a lot of other people. Just knowing that you have options. Cable actually was in existence, as we know, before streaming ever came about. So streaming is just another option that I'm glad that we do have.
Either way, it seems that even TV channels like Discovery and CBS have already jumped ship, creating their own services like Discovery Plus and CBS All Access, which has since become Paramount Plus. On one hand, digital streaming platforms offer a large assortment of films and shows that are readily available to watch at any time for a relatively small subscription fee, whereas with television, you would have to catch whatever any given network decides to air at that particular time. However, a similar problem can be seen with digital platforms as well, since any film or show can be added and taken off at any point. Regardless of the pros and cons between all of these options, the fact of the matter is that, for better or worse, subscription-based streaming services are here to stay. The real question lies in what this new, more convenient form of entertainment means for the future. Will streaming be the new de facto way to enjoy film for generations to come? Can movie theaters and television adapt to live side by side of this new era? Or will they eventually fall by the wayside and become relics of the past?
I think the Amazon Prime is probably the most versatile. And I would, if I had to pick one, I'd love to have a great DVD collection, but that would be out of the, getting those movies, getting the movies that you want would be expensive, and sometimes you wouldn't even be able to get them. So if I had to choose one, I would probably stick with Amazon Prime.
I would be good because we have everything online, streaming services. So I think the industry has prepared itself for the transition.
The popularity of streaming services seems to be mainly due to the convenience of making many programs easily viewable. With how many companies have joined in on the streaming craze over the past decade and a half, it's easy to think that streaming is completely taken over, especially with big names like Disney joining the race. However, once the pandemic was in full swing, places like the drive-in theater, a long-forgotten venue from the past, had actually started to see a spike in popularity when social distancing became more commonplace. Many people dislike going to theaters even before streaming services became more common. This could be due to movie ticket prices going up and most theaters not allowing outside food or beverages. This could lead to many people preferring to just watch a movie at home without having to drive out to a theater and be subjected to overly high prices for tickets and snacks. As streaming services become more popular, many people may come to this realization and just stay at home to watch films and TV shows. Could theaters and cable television make a comeback to restore their original status of being the prime source of entertainment for people? Only time will tell. There seems to be a lot more pros of streaming services in the eyes of many, but who knows, maybe theaters and televisions will do something to win back the audience they used to have.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.